from the road, about to hand the baton to David Knight, and David's doing such a great job trying to get a word in edgewise. We'll have now a couple hours to break all this down and lay this out for you, and hopefully later also open the phones up and take your calls. But as he was just getting into, we have the CIA former field commander up in Utah starting this whole elector deal and trying to get electors to turn against Trump. This started basically the day after the election on November 9th. Before that, he was trying to get Utahns to vote for him so that they could broker a deal and basically still defeat Trump. And this guy admittedly works for McCain, as David Knight just said, went over and met with ISIS, met with al-Nusra, met with al-Qaeda. These are truly monstrous individuals. But guess what we did? We came out before the election and after it and said, this guy's a scumbag. And again, I don't want to sit here and just say it's all CIA. I'm not defending the CIA either. It's criminals, it's globalists, it's corrupt individuals, it's operatives of this system that wants to basically enslave everybody that are inside and in control of these institutions that are above the law. The CIA, according to its charter, under the National Security Act of 1947, is basically above the law and invisible. It's worse than the UN with its diplomatic immunity. I mean, it has license to kill. It's out of control. It's a perfect system for a takeover of the country. The group claiming they're protecting the country are really the ones using the country to dominate and take over the world at our expense. That's about to come to an end. They have mismanaged things. Even from a Machiavellian perspective, they have not delivered. Even on their promise to their own controllers, they have destabilized the world. They have created a more evil world, a more unstable world. And so they're being rejected, and Americanism, not globalism, is returning, and the New World Order is panicking. So I want to play this Grathwold clip, the FBI informant, from his meetings inside the Weather Underground with Bill Ayers. This is who was just given hundreds of millions of dollars by the big foundations and the big Fortune 100, and George Soros gave over $100 million right after the election to these groups, but hundreds of millions more. I mean, the numbers is just unknown. It's billions the last few years, but since the election, just a few months ago, massive funding of this individual.
I brought up the subject of what's going to happen after we take over the government. We become responsible then for administrating, 250 million people. And there was no answers. No one had given any thought to economics. How are you going to clothe and feed these people? The only thing that I could get was that they expected that the Cubans and the North Vietnamese and the Chinese and the Russians would all want to occupy different portions of the United States. They also believed that their immediate responsibility would be to protect against what they called the counter-revolution. And they felt that this counter-revolution could best be guarded against by creating and establishing re-education centers in the Southwest, where we would take all the people who needed to be re-educated into the new way of thinking and teach them how things were going to be. I asked, well, what is going to happen to those people that we can't re-educate, that are die-hard capitalists? And the reply was that they'd have to be eliminated. And when I pursued this further, they estimated that they would have to eliminate 25 million people in these re-education centers. And when I say eliminate, I mean kill. 25 million people. I want you to imagine sitting in a room with 25 people, most of which have graduate degrees from Columbia and other well-known educational centers, and hear them figuring out the logistics for the elimination of 25 million people. And they were dead serious.
Now, people ask why I get upset on air, and it's because I've got hundreds of points I want to make. I'm teleprompter free, and I'm just so upset and frustrated because I know we're up against people just like Larry Grathwold, just died a few years ago, was breaking down. By the way, I interviewed him several times over the years. I didn't know how sick he was right before he died. I interviewed him. We should probably dig that interview up, and I think after Trump gets inaugurated and gets in, we should probably take some of the folks that aren't here with us anymore and posthumously give them awards for their fight against the globalists, and maybe even give some cash rewards to their family, just because we need to recognize the real patriots and have our own award ceremonies, not to ourselves, but to those that have paid the ultimate price and fought so hard. That's why it's disgusting to see Biden being awarded Medal of Freedom in a surprise ceremony brimming with emotion. Obama presents VP, the nation's top civilian honor. I mean, they admit everything they're doing is to sabotage this country for the globalists, to sell us out to the communist Chinese. They gave the 14 to 20 million identities, an entire system to roll up the entire U.S. spy network and all of their assets. They blew us wide open. They brought us down. They sold us out. That's another reason you're seeing this whole struggle right now, is because they've just gone so far. They've opened the borders for 3 years and let people in that they know have syphilis, drug-resistant TB, and yes, even things like flesh-eating bacteria and, of course, leprosy. I would tell people about leprosy 3 years ago because I have health department sources in Florida, Texas, and California, and they would say, oh, you're crazy, there's no leprosy. Well, now it's in the Associated Press. They put kids with leprosy in schools in Texas and in California in liberal areas, and then let it spread, and then use it as a test case with the health departments through DHS to see if they can cover it up. Just like they used Ebola cases all over the United States, and they were all over the United States, and it even came out here and there as a cover-up drill. All of this is testing what they can get away with, and a criminal, globalist, multinational cabal is in control of the CIA. The robber barons set up the UN to transfer our power to it and other multinational groups like TPP and the WTO. We're now awakening to that and saying no. And so now they are openly, just like they did with the electors and the recount, nobody believed me until it started happening, they're now priming the pump for civil emergency in the next 7 days with huge riots kicking off. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm saying they're planning it. They admit it. They have been prepping it. They're saying that the election should be suspended. And so I'm going to ask David this as I leave. Okay, and I want him to think and write some notes here. David, and I want to ask Snyder coming up. I want to ask you, the listeners. I want to create a debate around this. What do we do with 7 days out here on Friday the 13th to focus attention on this and to expose it? I think we tweet at Trump. We write articles. We put out videos. We tell Trump, hey, you've done a great job. We think you need to come out and point out that Hillary was bought off by the Chinese and the Saudi Arabians, and that's why you've changed the subject onto Russia, and that you're going to be investigated, Hillary, which is now being announced. Take the gloves off. They knew Trump was always going after Hillary. He was always going to drain the swamp. He was always going to lock her up. But he had to play possum. They now know it was always possum. So this is a death battle, folks. This is an epic time. Call into C-SPAN. Call into other talk shows. Get all over the internet. Comment everywhere. Do banner hangs on highways. Whatever is legal and lawful. Come to D.C. to stand up against these communists in a peaceful way and totally outnumber them like we did in Cleveland, so they shrunk back in their holes. Now, in closing, I'm going to hand the baton to David Knight. I get so focused on fighting the globalists, I don't even plug our products or what we do here. Whether it's anti-globalist T-shirts or Molon Labe T-shirts, whether it's non-GMO heirloom seeds, or whether it's the supplements, we're just extending sales of whatever's still in stock and whatever's come back in, like selenium was sold out. BioTrue Selenium, truly amazing, that's back. DNA Force is back. That is 10% off. That has been sold out for 2 months. We have, 30% off on a whole bunch of the products. Brain Force, our amazing nootropic. More Super Male Vitality came in, but a limited amount. It'll be a month till more comes in. That's about to sell out. But we've got a whole bunch of stuff discounted. Later, David can list it all, but it's at InfoWarsStore.com or InfoWarsLive.com. But whatever you do, support the broadcast, spread the links, spread the videos, but also these are great products, whether it's Prostugard or whether it's our super high-quality Mediterranean organic oil of oregano caplets that are 100% pure and absorb right into your body, the very best out there, whether it's the Sleep Aid Knockout, whether it's the Lung Cleanse, whether it's the Liver Shield, whether it's the Natural Defense Parasite Cleanse. It's all available at InfoWarsLife.com or call cancel, free 888-253-3139. We have almost 30 products now. Longevity is another great company I work with. They have over 400 products. InfoWarsTeam.com. When you get Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 or Pollen Burst or the OsteoFX products, when you sign up for auto ship, you get free shipping. When you sign up to be a distributor, you get big discounts, and a small part of the money that they make goes to fund our operation, about 5, 6, 7%, depending on what you purchase, and that helps fund the operation. So if you love longevity products like I do, InfoWarsTeam.com as well is the key site for that. But this is just, I keep saying historical time, and everybody overuses the word, epic. People overuse the word saying it's like Hitler. Well, Trump finally came out and said the media and the agencies are acting like Hitler. Yeah, Hitler overthrew governments. Hitler did corrupt things. Hitler lied about people. This is very Hitlerian. All the surveillance, all the tyranny, all the corruption, all the spies, all the manipulations. It's very authoritarian. And David, you made a really good central point yesterday, and I'm going to hand the baton to you and just ask you what else we can do. But you were making the point that you hope Trump he's learning about the surveillance state, because the one area he's been bad in is his heart. He means well. He's very smart. He's a good guy. He believes, well, if the government's good, then the surveillance is okay. No, it's always used against innocent people. It's a Pandora's box. We need to get back to the Constitution and Bill of Rights for a reason. We need to get back to not, as you said, Obama, as he leaves, is changing laws or regulations where now they're going to track everywhere you go and what you do. Of course, they were always doing that, but now they're admitting it. And so perhaps now that Trump has been burned by this evil surveillance grid and has experienced it and seen what it's done to Hillary and everybody else, maybe he'll move to afford all of us the protection guaranteed to us under our American system, because after all, it's Americanism, not globalism. David Knight, I'm going to hand the baton to you, my friend. Thank you and the great crew for the wonderful job you're doing, my friend.
Thank you, Alex, and that truly is my hope. And Donald Trump is a smart guy. And unlike these other people, he's not controlled by these cabals. He's his own man. And so I truly believe that as he sees these types of things happening to him, and as he hears other people, he can change his mind on issues. I mean, he is open to things like that. That's why we see the situation that we saw with RFK Jr. crossing the lines of party lines and saying, hey, I'll work with Donald Trump against the CDC's abuses. And, of course, we just have this article today about Allison Young, USA Today, pointing out how the CDC is keeping secret all of its mishaps with deadly germs. So it's not just vaccines, it's these other things. We have these quasi-governmental organizations like the Federal Reserve, like the CDC. They need to be audited. The CDC needs to be audited as well. But when we see people like RFK Jr. come across, and we got the article up on Infowars.com, Bernie Sanders say, hey, I agree with Donald Trump. I'd like to change the infrastructure as long as we make sure that we don't give it all away to private companies, as long as we don't privatize the infrastructure. I'd like to work with them on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, too. So we have people that we have profound disagreements with, like RFK Jr. and Bernie Sanders on many issues. We have profound agreements. But I think the key thing that Donald Trump can do, and we've already seen him do this, and we can see it, I think, to some extent in the confirmation hearings, is that he doesn't have unilateral agreement with everybody on everything. He doesn't demand that people come in and agree with him on everything and be yes men. And so I think it's important that we look at these confirmation hearings, that we see what people are saying, and we understand also that he's going to remain in charge. At least that's what we hope. We hope that it doesn't turn around the other way. That's why we're concerned when we see certain people that are in the cabinet that say, well, we're going in this way, and Donald Trump has been saying, no, I'm going in the other way. We always hope that we're going to wait and see which way the influence goes. But I think he's a strong leader. I think he will do the right thing if these people go in a different direction. And before I get to some of this other news, I got to say one of the things that Alex mentioned about Joe Biden getting the Medal of Freedom and crying about it. That's something that really bothered me to see that. Not the fact that he's crying, not the fact that he's getting sentimental about his son's death. I think that had a lot to do with it because that was mentioned by Obama. But look, my remembrance of Joe Biden is before he got the hair transplants, before he became vice president. I remember the Clarence Thomas hearings, the same type of stuff that we're seeing now going on with the cabinet. My wife and I were on vacation at the time. We were listening to them in the radio as they were being broadcast live. And I remember Joe Biden railing against Clarence Thomas because Clarence Thomas had supported the concept of natural rights and by extension, natural law. In other words, our rights come from God. They're not granted by government. Government is there to protect the rights that we have inherently as human beings. That's the Declaration of Independence. And I could not believe that Joe Biden was absolutely incensed by the fact that Clarence Thomas would support that. He felt that Clarence Thomas, supporting the principles embodied in the Declaration of Independence by Jefferson and the signers, he thought that those fundamental American principles of natural rights and natural law were disqualifying for Clarence Thomas. Can you believe that? I mean, go back and take a look at what he said in those hearings. Absolutely amazing. And here's the guy that Barack Obama gives a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He doesn't support freedom. He doesn't support individual rights. He doesn't support liberty in any way, shape, or form. Now, later in the program, we're going to be talking to Craig Richardson. He's the president of Energy and Environment Legal. And we see this explosion of regulations that are coming from Obama, especially in the last days, especially through the EPA. The EPA, it doesn't say, for the last 2 days, the EPA has gone after yet another major car company. We had 3 days ago, they arrested a VW executive. And I would say basically they kidnapped him. But then the next day, yesterday, they came after Chrysler. Chrysler's stock tanked. They said, you cheated on diesel. So the same thing they came after VW with. Now today they're coming after Renault and saying, Renault, you cheated on your diesels. Do you see a pattern here? They want to shut down diesel engines. They want to shut down internal combustion engines. And that's a globalist tactic, just like the way they're coming after coal. So we're going to talk to Craig Richardson about that. And of course, in the next hour, we're going to be joined by Michael Snyder, frequent contributor to Infowars.com, about the anarchists that are hoping to turn Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th into one of the biggest riots in U.S. history. That's his article. Also asking, why is Obama moving troops into Poland and provoking a war with Russia right before the inauguration? So he's doing a lot of things, and he's hoping that Donald Trump will not be able to turn these back. He's hoping that they can do these things, put them in terms of provocative Cold War actions, and that he can tie Donald Trump's hands by saying, you are a Russian agent. So they're doing everything that they can to make that come true. Today, we've got the Washington Post saying some people are calling Donald Trump a Manchurian candidate. Notice how cleverly they do that? They don't say, we think he's a Manchurian candidate. They imply that he's a Manchurian candidate. And when we come back from the break, I'm going to tell you who the real Manchurian candidate was and is. Okay? It's not Donald Trump. Yeah, you guessed it. His name starts with an O. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host. I want to go back and talk about the real Manchurian candidate. Washington Post is implying that Trump is, very strongly implying, and then say, let us tell you what this metaphor is about. And so we'll talk about that article, because you have all these different movies that have come up that have become metaphors. Movies like Gaslight. We're talking about gaslighting, or Catch-22. And they say, well, Manchurian candidate, that's a metaphor as well. Let's explain that. Not directly attacking Trump, but in a very passive, aggressive way is what the Washington Post is doing. Same way that CNN came after him earlier this week. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Real quickly, Alex was talking about the specials that we have. It's very important at the beginning of the year, I think, to establish new habits. It's one of the ways that we can improve our lives. Everybody's looking to try to make themselves healthier as the new year begins. One of the ways you do that is by establishing habits. One of the things I've noticed when I had a little bit of time, a little bit more time than usual, I would kind of see a dip in my energy level over the weekends, because over the weekends, I wasn't taking the supplements from InfoWars I typically take. Things like Super Male Vitality or Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. I have a routine, a habit that I do that on weekdays. And I would get involved with other things. I didn't have that habit on weekends, and I could notice a difference. I don't notice a difference on most of the things when I take them right away, except for things like Brain Force. That focuses my thoughts. So I definitely notice it with that. But the other ones, I didn't notice it until a couple of days went by without taking them. And then I could really notice a difference. So you need to set up your habit. You need to get yourself on auto ship, because we do have products that go out of stock occasionally. We just had DNA Force go out of stock for over a month. We've gotten that back in an emergency limited supply, and we have offered it as 10% off to help you stock back up. But all the time, we offer 10% off if you set up auto ship. And if your orders total more than $50 or more, then you get free shipping when you set up auto ship. But right now, we also have some specials. 30% off Brain Force, I just mentioned. 30% off Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, I just mentioned. Also, Super Male Vitality, 30% off. We have 20% off Secret 12. That's our vitamin B12 liquid formulation. 20% off of that. 20% off Liver Shield and Knockout, which is our natural sleep aid. Prostagard, 20% off, and many others at InfoWarsLife.com. We appreciate your support. That is the way we fund our operation. Media Matters and others are funded by the government, by George Soros, and so forth. And we're going to be talking to Michael Snyder in the next segment about the people behind this effort to try to create riots, to try to establish martial law. That's been a tactic of terrorists for a long time, to try to provoke an overstep of the government. But, of course, she's calling for martial law. I was really kind of surprised that Rosie O'Donnell could even spell it the right way. Maybe she doesn't really realize, let's be charitable and say she doesn't really realize what she's truly calling for, because that is truly a serious thing to call for that. But let's go back to this Manchurian candidate, this slander that Washington Post is putting out there. They're saying, well, you know, a lot of people have said this. Max Boot said it in the New York Times. Max Boot, the perennial never-Trumper, another partisan hack. So that's where these things are always coming from. You know, they've called Donald Trump Hitler so many times. It's become a meme. Everybody from Glenn Beck to these people, the Washington Post, calling him Hitler. And you notice the other day how indignant they got. They even had the Anne Frank Museum call out Donald Trump saying, you said these people were acting like Nazis, creating fake information and putting it out there to assassinate your character. You know, he said, that's the type of thing that Nazis did and have done. And they said, you can't invoke the Nazis because then that minimizes the Holocaust. That's what the Anne Frank people said. But it was okay when they did it ad nauseum, over and over again, ad infinitum, okay, against Donald Trump. Now they've got a new one because that's getting old, the Manchurian candidate. You know, the real Manchurian candidate is the guy who had multiple names, the guy who did everything he could to seal his record, the guy who traveled to Pakistan for a while and returned with a new Muslim name, the guy who grew up and was schooled in Islamic Indonesia, the guy who tried to cover up Christian symbols as one of the first speeches that he had when he was inaugurated, the guy who, when you saw his birth certificate, you saw it was a forgery. That Manchurian candidate, Barack Obama. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, see, I told you so, that communist Chinese-style net censorship was coming to the web, because it's already here. It's being announced. The way you keep the internet open and free is you get involved more than ever. Go to Infowars.com/app. A new battleship in the fight. Infowars Live, available right now. We're looking for a crew to man it. You going to sit down and play games and be a trendy? Or are you going to be part of history? Don't sit by and let the internet and free speech be stolen from you. Take action.